Hi there, I'm Tosin. Who was Henry Ford? Henry Ford was an American inventor. He was the founder of Ford Motor Company. He introduced the moving assembly line to car production. He invented a 5-day, 40-hour work week system. Henry Ford was born in Michigan on July 30th, 1863. He was the eldest of 6 children in the family. His father came to America in 1847 from Ireland. They settled on a farm in Wayne County, Michigan. When he was a little boy, he had already shown a strong interest in mechanics and invention. When he was 12, he was spending most of his spare time in a small machine shop. By the age of 15, he had built a steam engine. When he was 16, he went to Detroit, a city near his hometown. In Detroit, he became an apprentice in a shop. For a while, he ran a small lumber business selling timber from his father's farm. He returned to his hometown after 3 years. He worked on the family farm during that time. In 1888, he married Clara Bryant. Henry Ford said that the greatest day of his life was the day he married Mrs. Ford. Clara Bryant grew up on a nearby farm. When she was 18, Clara met Henry Ford at a New Year's Eve dancing party. When they were dating each other, they did plenty of dancing. Henry Ford was a fan of dancing. His father gave him a huge farm after the wedding. He was so excited, but not about the value of the farm. He was excited about the cleaning job of the farm. Henry cleared the land using a circular saw. He enjoyed the work so much that he even cleared the land of his neighbors too. He also used some of the lumber from the cleared trees to build their first home. They gave the house a name, the Honeymoon Cottage. In the first several years of their marriage, Henry Ford supported his family by running a sawmill. In 1891, Henry Ford was offered a job at the Edison Illuminating Company. After a careful consideration, he decided to take it. Again, his wife supported his decision. 2 years later, he became the chief engineer. Around the same time, his first child was born, named Asa Bryan Ford. At the time, the family was living in a rented house in Detroit. At the time, he had a strong interest in internal combustion engines. Therefore, he made a small gasoline model. This was his first vehicle-related invention. Later, his first automobile used the engine. After 2 years of spending every single minute improving his engine in the basement room, he made his first automobile in 1896. He called it the quadricycle. It had a metal frame and 4 bicycle wheels. The quadricycle was powered by a 4-horsepower gasoline engine, but it could only drive forwards, not in reverse. He was so excited to drive that car through the streets of Detroit. Later, he sold the quadricycle to continue building other vehicles. He got the money from many investors over the next 7 years. In 1899, he resigned from the Edison Illuminating Company. He, with others, founded the Detroit Automobile Company. However, this company went into bankruptcy about 18 months later. In 1901, he founded his second automobile company, the Henry Ford Company. But again, a year later, he left the company. Meanwhile, Ford had been working on racing cars. His cars were quite successful at winning races and even setting speed records. His victories made him famous. In 1903, Henry Ford and 12 others invested $28,000 to establish the Ford Motor Company. A month after the company was established, the Model A was assembled at the factory in Detroit. Between 1903 and 1908, Ford's company manufactured 9 different cars. The most successful was the Model N. Its skyrocketing sales made Ford believe that the Model T would be something amazing. Ford was dedicated to producing a reliable and efficient automobile, and he wanted a car that everybody could afford. Finally, the famous Model T was introduced in 1908. Why was Ford's Model T important? The Model T was not only changing America, but defining America at the time. Model T was an immediate success. Ford soon had more orders than the company could satisfy. In 1913, Ford's factory began operating the first moving automobile assembly line in the world. The assembly line would be a revolution to American industry. It cut down on the time required to produce an automobile. It made the cost of producing a car much lower. The moving assembly line was incredible for the Model T. The company could produce one car in just 90 minutes. However, workers hated it. The new production method had made work boring and repetitive. Many workers left to find jobs in other factories. Therefore, in 1914, Ford increased the daily wages to $5 for his workers. At the time, $5 was double what a factory worker could earn in a day. Ford also reduced the shift lengths to 8 hours, and no less than the previous standard. In 1915, Ford bought hundreds of acres of farmland to build the Rouge plant. At the same time, Ford called a press conference to announce his plan to end World War I. He would start the Peace Ship Expedition. He planned to sail to Europe to convince the nations to stop fighting. However, the plan was ultimately a failure. In 1926, Ford introduced the 5-day work week. He shut down his factories on Saturdays and Sundays. See, that's why people don't need to work at the weekends now, because of Ford. These changes turned out to be remarkably competitive in the labor market. This system gave the company many hiring advantages. Then the production increased sharply. Even as the production went up, demand for the Model T remained high. By the way, many of you may know Ford's Model T by its nickname, the Tin Lizzie. But do you know why the Model T got its nickname? In the early 1900s, car dealers often hosted car races to promote their vehicles. In 1922, a championship race was held in Colorado. Noel Bullock was one of the contestants. His car was a Model T named Old Liz. The Old Liz was unpainted and had no car hood. Many spectators said, "Wow, that looked like a tin can." By the start of the race, the car had the new nickname of Tin Lizzie. But to everyone's surprise, Tin Lizzie won the race. The Model T beat even the most expensive other cars available at the time. Tin Lizzie proved that the Model T was durable and the speed was not that bad. Tin Lizzie's surprise win was reported in newspapers across America. People started to use the nickname Tin Lizzie for all the Model T cars. By 1918, half of all cars in America were Model Ts. The Model T was the most influential car of the 20th century. It became a symbol of America's modernization. In 1919, Ford named his son as president of the Ford Motor Company. However, Ford still retained full control of the company's operations. By 1927, 15 million Model Ts had been sold. In the same year, Ford moved production to a massive industrial complex. His new factory was along the banks of the River Rouge in Dearborn, Michigan. The new plant included a glass factory, steel mill, and all other necessary components of the automobile production. That same year, Ford stopped the production of the Model T. He introduced the new Model A. Model A had better horsepower and brakes. By that time, Ford Motor Company was the largest automobile manufacturer in the world. However, the Model A was proved to be a disappointment and was outsold by other brands. Ford stopped producing Model A in 1931. In 1947, Henry Ford died at age 83.